aspects of the omnipresent reality have the fundamental truth to the supreme existence. Thus, even the aspect or power of inconscience, which seems to be an opposite, an addition of the eternal reality, yet corresponds to a truth held in itself by the self-aware and all-conscious infinite. It is when we look closely at it, the infinite power of plunging the consciousness into a trance of self-involution, a self-oblivion of the spirit fade in its own abyss, where nothing is manifest, but all inconceivably is and can emerge from that ineffable latency. In the heights of the spirit, this state of cosmic or infinite trance appears to our cognition as a luminous, uttermost superconscious. At the other end of the being, it offers itself to cognition as the spirit's potency of presenting to itself the opposite of its own fruits of being. And peace of non-existence, a profound night of unconscience, a fathomless moon of insensibility from which yet all forms of being, consciousness, and delight of existence can manifest themselves. But they appear limited terms in slowly emerging and increasing self-formulation. Even in contrary terms of themselves, it is the play of the secret pulpit, not knowledge, but it observes the rules of its own self-oblivion, self-opposition, self-limitation, until it is ready to surpass it. This is the inconscience and ignorance that we seek at work in the material universe. It is not a denial, it is a one term, one formula of the infinite.
An eternal existence. Okay. So, what he is saying, it's a very small para. We will read the summary and then we'll go into details as usual. Okay. So, the summary is like this. Each aspect, can you hear me by the way?
Yes, very much.
Because certainly the sound changed, that's why. So, he's saying in this para, each aspect, feature of the cosmos has its archetype, its blueprint in the supreme absolute. In other words, whatever is here, okay, whether it be a stone or a lotus or a mountain or a human being or anything, even the hundreds and thousands of plants, each variety, everything, there is a seed. There is a seed in the superconscient. And that seed becomes the actual physical feature in the physical world. So the archetype, what you call normally, the archetype of everything in the physical world has its origin there in the supreme, in the superconscient. From there it becomes a reality. So that's what he's saying. Each aspect, each feature of the cosmos has its archetype, its blueprint in the supreme absolute. Supreme absolute at the highest point. Even the inconscient has its corresponding truth in the superconscious. Even the inconscient, which is the opposite of superconscious. Superconscious is light, consciousness, complete, full awareness of everything. Okay? But the inconscient at the lower bottom is the complete absence of all these things. Okay? Even the inconscient has its corresponding truth in the superconscious. Tell me, yeah? And what is that? It is the power of self-absorption, self-concentration into an abyss of self-oblivion, of non-manifestation. So, in other words, this Satchidananda is consciousness. It has got the power to expand itself to infinite proportions, or it has also got the capacity to contract itself into something absolutely like a single point. Okay, this is the power that it has got. We have to admit this. It's like a gas which is very, very diluted and but if I can, like what we do in a refrigerator, we take the gas and compress it. And when we compress it, it becomes a liquid and then it is circulated in the fridge. Okay? And then when it expands, It absorbs the heat from the refrigerator and throws it out. In other words, this consciousness, this substance, even substance also, every substance we can contract it or we can expand it. When you expand it, it becomes a gas. When you contract it, it becomes a solid stone. Okay, so this is what he's saying. Even the inconscient, which is the opposite of consciousness, represents the power of the supermind or the power of God, if you want, to take any position he wants. He can expand himself into infinity, he can contract himself into even nullity, zero. He can become absolutely zero. That's the inconscience. Okay? So, but it is infinite. So, even the inconscient has its corresponding truth in the superconscious. It is the power of self-absorption, self-concentration into an abyss of self-oblivion, of non-manifestation. There is non-manifestation at the highest level, but it's a non-manifestation in light. There are no forms, there is only oneness. And one means no manifestation. There is only the structure. At the lowest level also, it is only non-manifestation, but it is dark. Okay? It's a dark non-manifestation. Nothing, you can't see anything in it, but it's a seed form. Okay? But the inconscient contains all the infinite possibilities of creation. But the evolution obeys its own laws of slow manifestation, self-opposition, apparent self-ignorance. When the evolution is taking place, it starts manifesting everything that is possible, which is seed form in the inconscient. But if everything is there, opposites also will come out. No? If there is something, its opposite also will come out. In fact, science understands this very well. Science says to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So this is the truth of the physical world, and so therefore, if there are opposites, manifestation has to struggle. Everybody has to struggle against their own oppositions. Okay. In man also we have all these problems. So we have the if we have virtue, there is sin. If there is generosity, there is also miserliness. So all these things are there opposing each other, and the evolution is slowly manifesting from this. Okay? It's a very slow. There is no hurry at all for it. This is what Sridhar is saying, basically. So we must admit that the consciousness, the supreme consciousness, has got the power to take any stand it wants. It can become infinite, it can become zero. That is the the famous 4 lines of William Blake, if you remember. Okay, there is no difference essentially between the infinite and the finite, or rather the infinitesimal. Infinitesimal is fine, infinitely small. Okay, so I repeat those lines very slowly so that you get the idea. Okay, so to hold infinity in the palm of your hand. Okay, to see heaven in a wild flower. Okay, heaven is infinite. Wild flower is a small thing. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand. Okay, and eternity in an hour. Even the eternity is compressed into an hour. So there is no difference. It is essentially the one Satchidananda which can become infinite and can become small. But now what is important is, in between there are forms. At the highest level there is formlessness. Formlessness in light. At the lowest level also formlessness, but in darkness. And in between there are forms. This is what Sridhar is saying in the para. Okay. Now, if you want, I'll go into each sentence we will read. Okay. I'm reading the sentence. All aspects of the omnipresent reality. The omnipresent reality is Satchidananda in the physical world. It is there everywhere. We may not see it. Just like we don't see butter in milk, nor do we see salt in the sea. Okay, we don't see it, but it is there. Okay, so all aspects. Aspects means limited forms. Okay, So all limited forms are there in the omnipresent reality. The omnipresent reality is the universe, okay? Have their fundamental truth in the supreme existence. This is, I'm putting in different words, to everything in the physical world, there's a seed from which it is coming in the highest level. If you want to use non-philosophical language, God contains everything in himself, and he has got in his mind, he has got the blueprint, he has got the idea, I will produce this, I will produce this, I will produce this. And that's why they become a fact. Okay.
Rangada, I have a question.
Yeah, tell me.
That reality, why they put in capital reality?
Because in the physical world, there is a reality which is half real. Nah? So when you put a R cap, it means the absolute reality, which you can't doubt. That's
Oh,
why. It represents the highest reality, R cap.
oh.
If I put,
Uh,
see, Shilpa, your body
yes.
is real, na? Your body
Ah,
is real, your son is real. But after 100 years, will they be real?
no.
So that's it. Reality with a lowercase.
Okay.
Something in time. All realities in time and space are realities with a lowercase. They are slightly less real than the absolute reality which never changes. In the physical world, everything is changing all the time. I told
Yes.
you, you must remember some things which you always keep in mind, okay? I'll again repeat those things which you have to keep in mind, okay? The highest is one single thing, nothing else, there is nothing else there. Only one. And what is that? Satchidananda.
Mm.
Then you come down to the physical world, the opposite, it's the many. There is a multiplicity. You can see infinite forms, okay?
Mm.
Even if you take only animals, even the animals are infinite, even plants are infinite, even human beings are infinite types. Okay, so multiplicity is the principle here at the highest level, one. Then the second one, okay, you must remember the highest is permanent, no change at all. Why? Because it is perfect. It doesn't need to change. It is perfect, eternal, infinite, immutable, no change at all. And the opposite is in the physical world. Everything is changing all the time. So that is the permanent and there is the impermanent. Keep these basic ideas in mind and then many things will become clear. Okay. Then, so that is one, this is the many. That is the permanent, this is the transient. That is outside time and space above, and below there is time and space. And time necessarily implies change. Every time is going on, there is a change always. Okay, so
Mm.
this is the thing. And don't think that in the physical world there is anything permanent. Nothing is permanent. Everything is impermanent. Even continents disappear. Okay, Himalayas are there, but don't think the Himalayas will last forever. Okay, they look,
Ah,
yeah, even they will disappear. Scientists are saying even the sun will disappear one day.
God.
It's a star which will burn itself out. Okay, so everything is so. Then the highest is formless, and the lowest is form.
Mm.
So keep these 4 or 5 ideas in mind, and there's a gradation between the two. So the highest is one, permanent, immutable, outside time and space, and formless.
Mm.
The lowest is exactly the opposite. Multiplicity, transience in time and space, everything is going on moving, and it is also full of forms. So if you keep this, the idea of the omnipresent reality within R cap will become clear. Huh?
I think this whole one line means makes the things different entirely. The my way of looking towards the things and persons and human beings, the nature, everything just changes. This one line contains so much. If I think
Absolutely.
on concentrate on this
Abs-
one line.
Yes, that's right. And that is when you realize that everything is impermanent and no value, we are giving value to money, to success. All these things will disappear one day. So what is it that will not disappear? That is the this yoga starts at that time. Okay. You start looking. What is it that is permanent? These are all worthless things. Today they are there,
Yes.
tomorrow they won't be there. So what is it? So, okay, so that is when the yoga starts. You start looking, and then when you find it, you find that it is your soul which is immortal. Your soul will never disappear. It will always be there. So we are identified with our body, mind, life, and we think that the ultimate thing. That's the whole thing. Okay, so I go to the next sentence. Okay, thus even the aspect or power of inconscience, which seems to be an opposite, a negation of the eternal reality. Okay, so first he has used the word omnipresent reality. Now he's saying eternal reality, yet corresponds to a truth held in itself by the self-aware and all-conscious infinite. Even the negation of the Satchidananda is there as a possibility in Satchidananda. Satchidananda has the capacity to negate itself. Okay? It is free from all fixity. If you say that Satchidananda is the perfect and the immutable, it can never change, you are limiting it. But God is limitless. How can you limit God? Okay? So it has a power to make itself the opposite also. You have to grant that. That is the Advaita philosophy. Okay? Most of the other religions don't recognize that. They say, oh, they are opposites. God and the world, they are all opposites. But it's not opposites. Essentially the same. Okay? In different grades. Just like water, ice, water vapor. Essentially the same, taking different forms. Okay? So he's saying even the inconscience is there as a potentiality in the highest level. Okay? Yet corresponds to a truth held in itself by the self-aware and all-conscious infinite. It is, when we look closely at it, the infinite's power of plunging the consciousness into a trance of self-involution, a self-oblivion of the spirit, veiled in its own abysses, where nothing is manifest, but all inconceivably is, and can emerge from that ineffable latency. Okay. So he's using interesting words. We look at it. Self-involution, that which is, if you can think of a picture, okay, you make the picture smaller, smaller. You can do that on a computer now, and it becomes small. It becomes one point. Now that point contains the whole picture. So this is at the highest level, it's a point with light. At the lowest level, it's a point in darkness. Essentially the same, but the darkness also can produce all everything that is hidden in it. And that's why ineffable latency. Latent means inherent. That which is there, the tree is latent in the seed. Okay, that's a latency. Latent, it is there inherent in it. But you don't see it. That's why it is, nothing is manifest. You don't see leaves and fruits and flowers in the seed, but they are there. That's what he's saying. Exactly in the same way, the inconscient also contains everything and comes out. It's the same with Satchidananda also. Everything is there, but when it comes out from the superconscient, from the Satchidananda, it is called involution. It comes down to the physical world. When it is coming out from the inconscience from the bottom, it is called evolution. Essentially the same. There is no difference between the two. Sorry. One is coming downwards and the other is going upwards. Basically the same movement, involution and evolution. Okay, so and it is veiling itself. The spirit, when it's coming down, it veils itself in matter, life and mind. In the heights of the spirit, this state of cosmic or infinite trance sleep appeals to our cognition as a luminous, uttermost self superconscious. In other words, when man experiences this, okay, you see it as a total self trance. It's a light that doesn't care for anything else. It's only looking at itself. There's only oneness. It's a totally concentrated light. That's the superconscious. In fact, that's what they call it Chit Ghana. Ghana means condensed, dense. It's a dense light. Okay. It's like it's very interesting that also there's a corresponding truth in the physical universe. You know what a black hole is, na? A black hole is energy, gravitational pull of light, which goes so strong a pull that nothing can escape from it. That's why it is dark. Okay, you don't see it because everything is condensed. So that is the inconscient, but it is when it is in light, concentrated light, it's called Chidghana, it's a superconscient. Okay, so this is what he's saying. They are very similar, the superconscient and the inconscient. Both are infinite, both are seed forms, and both are eternal, and both issue out of themselves all forms. One is issuing downwards and one is issuing upwards. Involution and evolution. So, now, then he's saying, at the other end of being, it offers itself to cognition, the spirit's potency of presenting to itself the opposites of its own truth of being, an abyss of non-existence. Nothing seems to be there, a profound night of inconscience, a fathomless swoon of insensibility, because there are no senses, you can't see anything in it, from which yet all forms of being, consciousness, and delight of existence can manifest themselves, but they appear in limited terms in slowly emerging and increasing self-formulations, even in contrary terms of themselves. It is the play of a secret all-being, all delight, all knowledge. Now, the involution is instantaneous. When the supermind or the Satchidananda decides to manifest itself, it is outside time and space, and there's no resistance to it. It's all powerful. So it is instantaneous. But from the inconscience, when it is trying to produce all the things which are there in it, it's a very slow process. It's not instantaneous. It takes infinite time. Slowly, over millions and millions of years, the forms hidden in the inconscience are slowly coming out. So it's that also is the opposite. Involution is instantaneous, outside time and space, and evolution is in time and space and very slow. It's not instantaneous. This is what Swami is explaining. And in between, all the forms are there. Okay? It's not a very big para, it's a small para. So then he's saying also that when it becomes the opposite of itself, it is showing that it is not limited to anything. Okay? This is a very interesting feature even in our Indian Hinduism. Okay? Don't limit yourself to any one particular idea. Okay? There should be no fixity in the mind. In fact, the mind should be so free that no thoughts come in it at all. Okay? All the other religions, most of the other religions, they have belief systems. Okay? It is like this, God is like this. Okay? The world was created in so many years. Okay? It started at this point. All beliefs are there. In India, we are told to get rid of all beliefs. Experience the infinite without forms. Make your mind silent. Okay? Be absolutely free. So when the divine is making himself the opposite, he is proving that he is not limited by anything. That's what Swami is saying. Okay? So this is the, it is not a denial, it's one term, one formula of the infinite and eternal existence. Okay? Got the basic idea? Okay. Then I think we can read the next one. Sunki, can you read the next one?
Yes.
It is
Yes.
important to observe. Yeah, let's read that.
Okay. It is important to observe here the sense that is acquired in such a total cognition of cosmos, being by the phenomenon of the ignorance. It's assigned a place in the spiritual economy of the universe. If all that we experience were an imposition on unreal creation in the absolute, both cosmic and individual existence would be in their very nature an ignorance. The sole real knowledge would be the indeterminable self-awareness of the absolute. If all were the erection of a temporal and phenomenal creation over against the reality of the witnessing timeless eternal, and if the creation were not a manifestation of the reality, but an arbitrary self-effective cosmic construction, that too would be a sort of imposition. Our knowledge of creation would be the knowledge of a temporary structure of evanescent consciousness and being, a dubious becoming that passes across the vision of the eternal, not a knowledge of reality. That too would be an ignorance. But if all is a manifestation of the reality and is self-real by the constituting immanence, the substantiating essence and presence of the reality, then the awareness of individual being and world being would be in its spiritual origin and nature, a play of the infinite self-knowledge and all knowledge. Ignorance could be only a subordinate movement, a suppressed or restricted cognition, or a partial and imperfect evolving knowledge with a true and total self-awareness and all awareness concealed both in it and behind it. It would be a temporary phenomenon, not the cause and essence of cosmic existence. Its inevitable consummation would be a return of the spirit, not out of the cosmos to a sole supracosmic self-awareness, but even in the cosmos itself, to an integral self-knowledge and all knowledge.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll again look at the summary of what he's saying, then we'll go into details. So we must note here that ignorance is a purposeful, intended self-forgetfulness and has its place and rationale in the process of the cosmos. Okay? In other words, normally when you are doing yoga, you condemn, okay, limitation, perversion, you condemn your ignorance, you are ignorant, you don't know what the reality is, you look down on it. But simply say that also has a purpose. And what is that purpose? It is limiting its own power to achieve something in the physical world. Okay, that also we have. We'll discuss it a little later. Let me finish the summary. Okay, then we'll see. We must note here that ignorance is a purposeful, intended self-forgetfulness and has its place and rationale in the process of the cosmos. In other words, it is justified. If all we see and experience in the world were an illusion, an unreality, then that would be real ignorance. But it is not so. That's what Sri is saying. But if the universe is really a manifestation, an expression of the Supreme, then ignorance is only a half knowledge, okay? Struggling towards full knowledge. This is what he's saying about the knowledge. Okay, it is there, the ignorance. What he's saying is that you don't need to be permanently ignorant. You have the capacity to make yourself into and have knowledge. So man is at a middle stage. He has half knowledge and half ignorance. He doesn't know the reality, but he knows how to manipulate forces in the physical world. Science is knowledge, but limited knowledge. So that's what basically he's saying. Then, in other words, he's justifying the limitations. Again, we repeat why it is necessary. When you are manifesting something, you have to give it a form. If you don't give it a form, there is no manifestation. The usual example I give you is you have a thought in your mind, okay, but you don't speak it out. When you speak it out, you are giving it a form. You are using words, which are forms. So if you don't speak it out, it remains unmanifest. Okay. So, but if you want to manifest it, you have to speak it out. You have to give it a form. Okay? So, as we say, take infinite clay. Okay. There's no pots and pans you don't see in it, but you can bring out pots and pans from it by taking a limited amount of clay and giving it a form. So forms means manifestation and manifestation means limitation. So therefore, the total knowledge which is there has to manifest itself in the physical world, it necessarily has to limit itself. So when it limits itself, it becomes seemingly imperfect and becomes ignorance. It's a purposeful reduction of its own knowledge and consciousness to manifest itself in the physical world. Okay? So that's what he's saying. Now, this is the basic idea. So we go now to the text, what he's saying. I'll read each sentence. It is important to observe here the sense that is acquired in such a total cognition of cosmic being by the phenomenon of the ignorance. Okay? So, on the one hand, we have light at the highest level and darkness at the lowest level. It is light that is slowly reducing itself to manifest itself. It becomes darkness at the lowest level. Similarly, knowledge. Knowledge also reduces itself and seems to be becoming total ignorance at the lower level. But it is not total ignorance. It can get back to it's a purposeful self-forgetting. That's what he's saying. Its assigned place in the spiritual economy of the universe. By the way, the word economy here doesn't mean economic at all. It has nothing to do with economics. It means a process. This is an archaic word, and now it's not used in that sense, but Aurobindo wrote this 100 years ago. So, not 100, 110. So, naturally, he has used the word that was current at that time. It means process. Okay? So, the spiritual process of the universe. If all that we experience were an imposition, an unreal creation in the absolute, both cosmic and individual existence would be in their very nature an ignorance. So what he's saying is, ignorance would be something that has absolutely no connection with reality at all. The Mayavadins seem to be saying that, Buddhists also seem to be saying that the physical world is only total unreality. Srivastava doesn't agree. Neither does the Advaita agree. It is not total unreality. It's the difference between a town and its photograph. Okay, the world is a photograph. It is not the thing itself. It's a photograph. It's a symbol. So it's not total unreality. From the photograph, you can climb back to the actual thing. Okay? Through the symbol on my finger, I can get back to the mother by concentrating on that symbol. So the world is a symbol of the divine. That's what he's saying. Okay. If it are not so, if what I'm seeing in the physical world is really an illusion and has no reality to support it, then it will be total ignorance. But it's not total ignorance, it is semi-ignorance. Okay. Semi-knowledge, semi-ignorance. If all that we experience were an imposition, an unreal creation in the absolute, both cosmic and individual existence would be in their very nature an ignorance. The sole real knowledge would be the indeterminable self-awareness of the absolute. If the world were really an illusion, there is no way you can only experience the reality by going up and leaving the world. But she's saying it is not necessary to do that, because even in the physical world, you can experience the divine. So, would be interesting. If all were the creation of a temporal and phenomenal creation over against the reality of the witnessing timeless eternal, the witnessing timeless eternal, 3 words which means self. Remember, immutable witness consciousness. And if the creation were not a manifestation of the reality, but an arbitrary self-effective cosmic construction, that too would be a sort of imposition. Okay? So, the Buddhists and the Mayavadins are saying that the world is absolutely unreal. It is no corresponding to reality. But that Srivastava does not agree. Our knowledge of the creation would be the knowledge of a temporary structure of evanescent consciousness and being, a dubious becoming, a very doubtful becoming that passes across the vision of the eternal, not a knowledge of reality. Is it like that? So they say it is not like that. The physical world is not unreal, it's only a shadow form, it's a symbol, it's the photograph of the reality. That too would be an ignorance, but it is not so. That's what he's saying. But if all is a manifestation of the reality and itself real by the constituting immanence, not only that, the photograph contains the reality of what is being photographed, okay? The substantiating essence and presence of the reality, then the awareness of individual being and the world being would be in its spiritual origin and nature a play of the infinite self-knowledge and the all-knowledge. By the way, I'll explain something to you, it will become very clear. When mother wanted to admit somebody into the ashram, suppose they applied, they would say, please send a photograph of yours. Okay. Now, mother will look at that photograph and from the photograph, can she make out what that person really is? You and I may not be able to make out. But those who have the capacity, through the photograph, they will be able to approach the real person and know his nature. And then when she says that he is ready, she will say, yes, you can come to the ashram. Sometimes when they see that he is not fully ready yet, they will say, no, it's not a time for you to come, prepare yourself. So this is what the physical world is, a photograph of the divinity, of the reality. And through that photograph, you can go to the real. There is a connection. It's not that there is no connection. Okay? Otherwise, you can wonder how, by looking at a photograph, they can do that. But that's exactly the point. Okay? It's also the truth of also, even I told you, in those who are psychics, okay? Those who have the capacity to touch something and everything that is associated with that thing, they will be able to know. So let's take a pen or a shirt. Now, if that person is missing, the psychic will touch that shirt and will be able to contact the person who is wearing that shirt. Okay? So this sounds very funny, but that is exactly because everything is connected. Okay? Every time I use my pen, something of me is getting into that pen. Okay? And a psychic will be able to touch my pen and be able to say so many things about myself. Okay? That also is the truth of the horoscope and also the palmistry. Okay? You look at the palm and then you can know something about the person. There's a connection. So this is what he is saying. The world is not an unreality. It is not total ignorance. It's a reduced reality. A photograph is representing the reality. Right. So now he is saying, but if all is a manifestation of the reality, the physical world is manifestation of the reality and itself real by the constituting immanence. In other words, the divine has created the universe and entered into it. Okay? So that's what. Because he has entered into it, it is real. But yeah, tell me.
Can I? If divine has created the universe, then who has created the divine?
That's a very interesting question. Really, I tell you, this was a problem that even bothered me sometimes. Okay, how can the divine, who is perfect, come into existence suddenly by what power? Yeah, really, it's quite a mystery actually. How did he come into existence? And who is perfect? Yeah.
Because they have also gone through so many lives, then they have attained divine power.
Yeah, but then at that time the question disappears because you understand that is something that we can't understand. Okay, but then when the yogi goes, that question disappears. I'll tell you why. Because there's a gradation of consciousness. Now, take an animal, its consciousness is limited. It can't do something which man can do. It can't. It is impossible for a monkey to create a computer or a telephone. Impossible. It cannot happen. So exactly in the same way, what a yogi can know, a human being at our level, it is impossible for him to know the truth. So this question which you are asking is one of those questions which we cannot be answered at the mental level. But when you go to the higher level, that question itself disappears. Because, oh, it is so simple. Now it is so clear. But when you are in the mind, yes, it's a problem. It's true. Okay, I'll tell you something very interesting. Take a monkey or a cat or a dog. I've seen videos, very interesting. You put a huge mirror in front of the dog or the cat. You know what they think? That there is a cat
Somebody.
behind that mirror. And they keep going behind the mirror to see who is there. So it is impossible for the monkey or the cat to understand that this is a reflection. It's not a reality. It's a very interesting video. They look at the image in the mirror and go behind to see where that fellow is. But impossible, they can't understand. So, in other words, there is a limitation of consciousness at the animal level, at the human level, and though we ask questions which cannot be answered at this level. You go to the higher level, these questions itself disappears because they become very, very obvious. But really, when you think about it, I tell you, this bothered me a lot. Even now, sometimes it bothers me. Okay. How did God come into existence? Yeah, no, really. How can he suddenly come into existence? There must be a cause. How is that? So that question itself disappears. It's very interesting. Okay, it is 7:34. So this is basically what he's saying. So even the ignorance in the physical world has got a purpose. That's basically what he's saying. Okay. So we stop here today. And we'll go on to it might be objected. So we'll see that next time. Okay?
Okay, au revoir, Rangada. Have a nice day. Au revoir, Tumman.
Au revoir, everybody. Okay?
Thank you, Rangada.
Okay, au revoir, Funky. And then there is Jyoti Anand. Okay, she's just left. And Shilpa.